Some additional thoughts on the dominant chords with a flat 9 and sharp 9 derived from the Octatonic Diminished Scale on B flat 1256. Going back to the original B flat 7 sharp 9 voicing B flat D, D flat, A flat. And then the voice exchange, B flat and A flat, swapping. And of course these are in minor thirds and they can resolve. That's on D flat, resolves to it. D flat minor or G flat major or minor from that. E as well, E7, and of course G7 resolving to C or C minor or E flat minor. You know, either one, it does not matter. Okay, now in addition to that, there are the types that have two tritones. So for instance, B flat and E, F and B on top, same thing. So these have a tritone sort of sound to them. The voices can be exchanged, and you get this voicing, which is very common, which is B, F, E, and B flat, and resolves nicely to C. And again, this is movable by minor thirds. So here again is the E flat minor resolution from that. So that's on F, and again that can fold into a regular sort of dominant chord and then resolve itself as well. Triads should be discussed too a little bit more. We did see in the last video that we had this chord, which was B flat D, G, and B, and we said that was a G major over B flat, which it is. Also, the E, the traditional tritone voicing over the B, E, A flat, and B natural. And we can also bring that to F. The E can go to F, but these are all perfectly, good voicings to work with that sort of a sound, and they're common. The additional thing too with going back to this voicing is if we take the root B flat D, G, and B and we move it down to A flat, that's very common, like a diminished major 7 sort of voicing, and it can fold into a sequence very easily. So this is A flat D, G, and B folds into B, E, A flat, and B, which is the E over B flat, and we sequence it. So we have B, F, B flat, and D, move up to a D flat chord with G on top, and we can see, and then it eventually resolves to C. So that's a good sequence to have under our fingers. Likewise, chords like this have merit as well. And we looked at that voicing, which was B, E, F, and B flat. And then if we move the B flat up to D flat, we have sort of a 13 flat 9 sound. Again, here D, G, A flat, and E. So almost a G chord of sorts, and you can resolve this way. You can resolve to C, you can resolve to A minor, it can resolve to C minor, C major, etc., E flat, the same thing. So either one, any of those opportunities are fine, and any of those uses are fine. But again, just to get a rounding out of the system with all the different types of dominant chord substitutes here, which are important. Now the next thing is the whole tone scale sound. I'm going to do these on B. So I'm going to start with a very simple one, B, F, G, and D flat. And again, they move up by whole steps. Any chord member can move up by whole steps as well. So, and they can resolve by semitone, or they can resolve by semitone ascending. So for instance, this chord can act like a D flat chord going to a C, or it can act as though it's an A chord in a sense, going to a D minor in this case. The next moves, then we can take the A and we can move it to B. That's very common. So that's a very common sound. Now we can voice exchange as well. So one voice can move to the other, and that's fine, like this. So then you have sort of an E flat, G, B, and D flat sound. And that can be exchanged, and then a cadence developed from there. Also, just on that basic sense, the top. If we move the top voice, we've got D flat, G, A, and B. So that's fine too. That has, and again, the exchange there is very easy. That's an easy one to grasp. Very usable sound, E flat, A, B, and D flat. And then the outer two voices exchange for D flat, A, B, and E flat. That's easy to do. Or we can stop there and cadence at any point. So those whole tone sounds are very common and very useful. Going back to this, again, there are so many possibilities. Common is this. So this is D flat, A, B, and F. Okay, so it really comes from this, from expanding D flat, A, and B, and E flat, and we just take that top voice up to F, and that works just fine. And we can exchange and get a secondal kind of sound. We can get seconds up top, so that's nice as well. F, A, B, and C sharp, and that can collapse to that, etc. Yeah, those are all fine to do. So again, notice that it's an expansion of the last part. So the very first chord, we're just moving the bass part, just as we did the top part. So, and in fact, you can see that that inside major ninth can move itself. So it's very easy to do in that sense. And then we can expand and just develop the voicings from that. And if you notice, this one relates to the diminished. So the diminished was this, but the whole tone is that. So that creates a little bit more interest as well. If we're looking at more of the closed voicings, or the voicings that go in that direction, again, we had this voicing a little earlier, but also, we can move 2 seconds. So D flat and E flat and G and A is fine, and D flat, E flat, G and B is nice as well. That's a nice sound. So that's a typical whole tone sound on that chord family. So they can move in either direction in terms of the basic voicings and in terms of the voice motion itself. Also, I mean, even just basic voicings like this are great. D flat, F, and this is an A, and an E flat is fine. That's a very common, easy to grip and easy to go back and forth on. That's a really nice voicing. So, and it has a typical augmented look to it, if there is such a thing as a typical augmented look. So, like this, D flat, F, A, and E flat could go either up or down, and again, it could go in this direction. So we have those sorts of chords that work really well for the whole tone scale. But what's important to observe is the different ways that the voices can move. For example, these chords would normally look like a major chord, and we had learned them that way. We did cover them in that sense, but they come from the whole tone scale too. That's D flat, F, G, and E flat, and I can go to another F as a doubling if we like, or it can go in this direction. We learned that one as well as part of the diminished collection, but here it appears in the whole tone: D flat, F, G, and B. So And that would resolve very nicely to that. So here it is. Very easy to play too. And we can easy to make a sequence out of it. We're going from E flat A, B and F, E flat G, A and F. Eventually resolving to a G flat or something. But those will give you just some of the ideas of what's possible at the whole tone scale. And what's interesting about the resolution is it can go a semitone down, a fifth, it doesn't matter, wherever the arrival point is. So if we cadence on a D flat chord, it can go down to a C, or it can go up to a D. It will behave in either manner, or D flat, and we can resolve that to a G flat. So fifths and semitone on either side is all fine. They all work. That's what's nice about this collection. And sometimes it's overlooked in this sort of a chord set, and it can resolve by semitone. What's nice about that is the same form can, since they belong to major and whole tone collections. So, for example, that's great because it's E flat type, and I move from B to A. So E flat G, B, F, moving to A. And then at that B, E flat, F, and D flat, I simply move down a semitone and pretend that that's a cadential chord on B flat. So that gives you a recap on some of the diminished voicings, and an extension, additional thoughts, and also on whole tone scale voicings, which is dominant 7, sharp 5, and flat 5 on 1, 2, 5, 6 chord set, on B flat in the first instance and B in the second.